to our Tuesday. Actually, let me start that over. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday Collective Indie Spotlight. Yet again, we have an awesome AWA guest. We are going to have Christa Faust on the show this week, the writer of Bad Mother, #1. We have it on the shelves here at the Collective. It was my pick of the week. It's one of my favorite books. You're going to see a tab that says Danny loves this on the shelves. And she needs no further introduction. We have Christa Faust backstage. Let's bring her on, ask her a few questions about the book. How are you doing today, Christa?
Hey, kids.
You're out on the West Coast. How's the weather out there? How is everything over there?
Scorching. I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm a New Yorker originally, born and raised. So I sort of view myself as like an expat, a stranger in a strange land, you know. But I've been out here for long enough that maybe I'm born again, Angelino.
Sounds like we get in a little bit of the same weather over here, Florida and LA, because it is hot out hot.
It's a dry heat.
That is right. So, Christa, we ordered up on your book, Bad Mother. AWA has been dropping hit after hit after hit. This is the new #1 that came out for August. Tell us a little bit about Bad Mother #1, your main character, April Walters. Tell us about it.
Well, Bad Mother is basically about a forgotten woman. It's about the kind of middle-aged, invisible woman that you might see in line behind you at Walmart, but you don't see her. You know, she's there, but she's not there. Her family doesn't appreciate her. People around her don't see her. Even a criminal wanting to take a hostage reaches right past her because she's just not even there. You know, and the concept, the idea behind Bad Mother was, how can a person who doesn't have any skills, who isn't, you know, a kung fu master or a sharpshooter or a marine or, you know, secretly endowed with some magical superpower, you know, how would an ordinary person use grit and determination and mom skills, you know, to get her daughter back after her daughter has been kidnapped? And the joke that I always like to make is that if April can organize a birthday party for a dozen 8-year-olds with the variety of dietary restrictions, you know, she can take on a crime cartel.
Well, I've already gotten a chance to read the book, but I'm not going to spoil anything for our people that haven't read it yet. But talk to me a little bit about what your inspiration was, not just for the book, but when writing the character of April.
Well, I mean, I myself I don't have any children, and I live in the suburbs now, but I kind of, again, consider myself to be sort of an alien observing on another planet. You know, but in a lot of ways, I think maybe that gives me a good perspective because, you know, I do see things here in suburban Los Angeles through a fresh perspective. And I think that a lot of my friends who are my age, I'm 51, and I really wanted to, you know, capture that experience of aging and disappearing. So when, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but Amy Schumer talks about women's last fuckable day. You know, that once you go beyond the event horizon of fuckability and you're no longer viewed as a potential mate by everyone around you or a potential rival, you know, then you achieve this kind of bizarre and this invisibility. And so a lot of the inspiration that I got was from my own friends who are my same age, many of whom do have children, and just talking about their experiences and what they've been through. And I feel like there's a real, there's an empty space in the pop culture narrative for the voices of older women and our experiences, what that feels like.
So as I was reading it, and you find this out very early in the book, so this isn't a spoiler, but as I'm reading it, first of all, when I read the solicitation, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, April's going to be a single mother. Very early on in the book, you actually find out that she has a very full family, but you've kind of placed everybody in places where it's going to be just April. I talked to Axel a little bit about that. And what made you want to do that to make sure that, you know, April had that foundation, but at the same time, she's on her own in this situation?
Well, because I think that in so many ways, mothers in America today are alone. That yes, they have other members of their family, but there's always this sort of final fundamental mom will handle it. That, dad's busy, he's at work, the kids are busy, they're at, karate, or, they're doing soccer or whatever they're doing, and it always, even when you are surrounded by others, you still have this tremendous loneliness and this tremendous singularity in being the rock for your family. And so I think that's kind of what we were trying to get across. Not that, she doesn't have any help because she doesn't have a husband, because it seems more subversive that
Mm-hmm.
sure she has a husband, but really he's not there.
Yeah, yeah. I like that twist. I definitely, like I said, when I read the solicit, it wasn't what I was expecting, but I actually enjoyed that was the direction it went. Christa, you have been known as a crime novelist, and now you are getting to write comic books. How has that transition been for you? Have you enjoyed it? And how different are the two worlds?
It was tricky. This is not my first comic experience, but it's very early on. I consider myself to still be very much a newbie
Mm-hmm.
in this world. And you know, I think the hardest part for me is that when you're writing prose, you can sprawl. You can get into people's heads, you can take as much time as you need to tell a story. And I love dialogue. I'm kind of a minor bird. Like, I pick up the way people talk very easily. And I love listening, overhearing conversations and the patterns of speech, the natural patterns of speech. And in comics, I feel like dialogue is very truncated. It has to be, by the nature of the medium, because, like, for example, you say one thing, I reply to you, and then maybe you can have a short, counter reply, and that's it. You got to move on to the next panel, and you can't have 40 pages in a row of talking heads, and so you really need to get quickly to the point, get your point across in the simplest possible way, which, kind of goes against my love of naturalistic dialogue. So that's been a challenge for me. And I had a hard time learning how to think in panels. My first comic project that I worked on was a semi-autobiographical project called Peepland, with my co-author Gary Phillips. And that was kind of like being thrown in the deep end of the pool. But the advantage there was that I had a co-author who was experienced with comic writing, who could kind of, like I was the mouthy rookie and he was, the cynical veteran, and we ended up making a pretty good cop show together. But with this, I've been leaning very heavily on Axel and on the artist and the other people on the AWA team to sort of, help me get up to speed in some of the things that are not. I guess maybe it's not my first language. I'm still not fluent, so I'm learning on the job.
So you mentioned that, you've gotten a little, that you get some help from the artists on the team, from Axel, and I'll get to Axel here in a second, but I want to ask you, so the main artist on this is Mike Deodato Jr. He also worked on The Resistance, which was the first AWA book. What has it been like working with a guy that's been around the industry? Some people consider him a legend. I mean, our owner here at the store loves Mike Deodato's art. So what has it been like working with Mike?
Well, I mean, it's been a real honor. I mean, he's obviously, really well regarded in the industry. And again, being surrounded by veterans has been a help for me because, I just am wanting to reinvent the wheel all the time. But, being surrounded by people who have a little bit more wisdom and understanding, has kind of helped me grow and learn and understand. And I mean, I think that the reason why I really think Deodato's work is perfect in this instance is I love the way that he does facial expressions. These very subtle, small facial expressions, because one of the things I worried about a lot transitioning to comics was, how do you get across what people are feeling? Because that's normally my job, and unless they say, I feel sad, I feel horny, I feel angry, if they don't say that, how do you know? because you're not in their head the way you are with prose. But I really appreciated Deodato's ability to capture these little small moments, especially because Bad Mother is a very small story.
Hmm.
It's not a sweeping, exciting, zooming, diving, flying kind of a story. It's a small story. It's a personal story, and getting across those little personal nuances in the facial expressions, but then also being able to switch from these little quiet, subtle moments to wild, gory action like that. Really
Yeah.
impressive.
There's a page in here, and it's a couple pages in, so I'm not going to show it, but I'm sure if I describe it, you will have an idea. It kind of shows April's house, panel by panel. Shows her living room, some pictures, some framed pictures on a shelf, her kitchen, and then what looks like in the laundry room. As somebody who's read comics for a while now, when I look through that page, I start analyzing every single thing in there, every little picture, every little thing. Is that your guys' plan? Is everything in there a little bit more like, are we supposed to be picking little clues up in that page that may help us along the way, or is that just Easter eggs for you?
Well, what we tried to do in the script, I mean, obviously when you're working on a team, things get translated. And so things in the script aren't necessarily the same as when they get drawn. But in the script, what we were attempting to do was to have a series of images that would mirror. So you see photos of April's family,
Mm-hmm.
and then later you see photos of Ava's family, and to show the contrast, like what type of person this one character is contrasted against what type of person Ava is. And I think that was our intention. It wasn't so much that if you look super carefully, you'll see some trick that'll give you a hint to something later, or at least that wasn't intentional. It may
Okay.
serendipitously end up that way, but
Okay.
that wasn't how I wrote it.
Yeah, because immediately as I'm reading it, I'm like, ooh, okay, I see some pictures of her family. All right, there's a vacation. Okay, this is her kitchen. I start going, what's on the fridge? Let's look at the different things that are on the fridge. So that's personally just me as I read a comic, especially because there weren't too many word bubbles in there. So I'm thinking, all right, somebody wanted me to focus on this stuff. So, but no, the book has been great. I read it already, like I said, but I talked to Axel about it a little bit last week as well. And Axel, I mean, glowing reviews. Axel, he's like a kid in a candy store when he's talking about AWA and all you guys and your books. But what was your first conversation like with Mr. Axel Alonso, and what was his pitch to bring you on to AWA?
Well, I mean, we met previous to this. I mean, we've known each other for several years, and we met a while back when he was at Marvel, and we had talked about like ideas. We had a couple of meetings where we sort of we're just enjoying, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this and that, and just talking about concepts and ideas that we might have that we were thinking at the time potentially might work in his previous employer, but but none of that ever ended up going anywhere. But we were always friends, and we always had kind of a simpatico feeling of wanting to do things that were not conventional, that weren't standard issue or like familiar tropes. We really wanted to explore new voices who don't have a kind of a history in comics, such as marginalized communities, different voices. And so obviously when he contacted me and said that he was going to do his own thing, I mean, you said he's so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
The excitement that he gets you excited with his own excitement is contagious.
Yeah, no, it was, I haven't gotten to talk to too many COOs, but I mean, I didn't feel like I was talking to a guy that was that high up in a business. I literally thought I was talking to a guy writing his own comic book. I mean, it was amazing what Axel is like. And I really, I'm looking forward to everything that AWA and you guys are going to be able to do, which actually leads me to ask my next question. So in the lead up to Bad Mother, I heard some people say, oh, it's a little bit like Taken or a little bit like Punisher and this. But at reading it, it stands on its own. And it really, I mean, yes, there's okay, somebody gets kidnapped. But other than that, this is its own book. Do you kind of like the fact that you've
I'm
done?
sorry. I don't mean to. I don't mean to interrupt, but you're really breaking up. Your audio is really breaking up. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
Let me see the Wi-Fi. Can you hear me now?
It's just I'm getting like a. Go ahead.
Is it breaking up a
Speak.
little bit, or can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, it's a little hurdy-gurdy, man. But I can get the gist if you just maybe talk slow. I don't know.
Okay, it might be the connection. I will ask the question, and I'll go ahead and write it in the chat as well, so that way, if you didn't hear me all the way, you go ahead and answer it.
Okay.
But,
yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So, Bad Mother. Okay. Some people leading up to it were talking about saying how it sounds a little bit like Punisher, a little bit like Taken. But after I read it, I kind of started realizing it's kind of its own thing. Yes, it has a little bit of similarity, but it 100% stands on its own. Are you proud of that? Was that your intention? And have you heard those comparisons?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I have kind of a pet peeve in genre fiction that I like to refer to as the sad baddie trope.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, in a nutshell, a beautiful, young, preferably white, preferably heterosexual, preferably thin, preferably conventionally attractive woman is dead or raped or dead, and a man has feelings about that. And that the story isn't about the girl, it's about the man's feelings. And that he's essentially cardboard catalyst who exists for the sole purpose of giving him a reason to go live on a mountain and learn kung fu. And I find that tired old trope, that sort of death wish trope, be really limiting, because that girl, that's a person.
Mm-hmm.
She's having an experience, and it isn't just about, her dad, her father, or a father figure who has kind of confused, partially sexual, paternal feelings towards her. I didn't just want to invert. I didn't want to take that cliche and just replace the father with a mother.
Okay.
I wanted the daughter, Taylor. I wanted her to have agency. I wanted her to be part of the story, to have an ability to work together, to solve this problem, because that's really the nature of female strength. I didn't want to have Mike Hammer in high heels. I didn't want to have Liam Neeson tits. I didn't want that. I wanted to lean into female strength. So a woman doesn't have to be masculine in order to be strong.
Yeah.
And one of the key elements of April's character and her strength is cooperative action, working with others to achieve a goal. And that she's not this like lone wolf, this rogue ninja sneaking off alone to assassinate somebody. No, she's a mom. She's used to doing things with others, and she and Taylor are kind of working together from both ends towards the center of solving this problem.
So you just mentioned Taylor 2 or 3 times there, and that leads me into what I want to ask next. And Axel actually mentioned this many times in the interview as well. He mentioned that he didn't want Taylor to just be a damsel in distress. And granted, in the first issue, we don't get that far along in that plot. But you, I'm guessing, were all on board with not making April a damsel in distress. And I'm assuming she will help along the way. You still
Yes,
with me?
absolutely. I mean, it's that sort of Princess Peach.
Yeah.
The idea that Taylor is a goal. She's not a person.
Mm-hmm.
She's a plot device. And she happens to be cute. That just makes it more meaningful. So people have more feelings. But no, this is a person. This is a person with a fully realized life and experience, and she's there in that moment, experiencing those things and working to find a way out.
So let me, without giving away too much, because I know it is a 5-issue miniseries, what can we expect from the world of Bad Mother moving forward?
Well, I mean, I it's kind of hard to say without spoilers, but I mean, essentially, what we're going to see is we're going to see a person who is absolute depth of her ability, that she is going to be pushed farther than she ever thought that she could go. And again, what she finds is not, she doesn't learn a masculine skill in order to
Mhm.
win. She uses the skill she already has. She understands that she already possesses what she needs in order to win.
I really think people are going to fall in love with April Winters. She is I mean, other than getting kidnapped, she sounds like everybody's mother that I knew growing up. She reminds me of my mother and things like that. So I think people are going to fall in love with that character. My last question for you before I let you go, and it was something. So Axel mentioned to me that nothing at AWA is will just be one series if that's what the creators want. He said some of them are plotted out as one and dones, but could you see yourself returning to the world of Bad Mother after your 5th issue is over? Could you see yourself writing maybe another story for April or another story for Taylor even?
Absolutely. I mean, you could take it any number of different directions. It's the creative possibilities are endless. I mean, you could take it in sort of a like Walter White type of direction. Now that there's an opening in this criminal
Mhm.
enterprise, maybe she could step in and take over. She and Taylor might team up to like fight against sex trafficking in some way. You could have a spin-off story, of
Mhm.
just Taylor, having things happen to her. But what I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to get too big. I like the personal nature of the story, the that emotional center of a small story about a small woman living her own little life and what happens when that gets busted open. And so if I do continue it, I would want that sort of homey, close to the bone kind of feeling.
Well, thank you so much, Krista. The book is Bad Mother #1. We have plenty of them left on the shelves here at the Collective. The writer is Christa Faust. You just heard from her. Artist is Mike Diodato Jr. AWA Upshot. This is their big August #1. Pick it up if you can. Grab it. We have our #1 issue guarantee here at the store. So if you grab it, it's not for you. You can go ahead. No risk. Bring it on back. We'll find somebody that does love it. But Krista, thank you so much for joining us. We will be on this adventure with you for the next 5 months and see how April's story turns out. And maybe we'll bring you back here at the end and see once you can speak about everything that happened, we can have you back on and talk about the story too.
Yeah, maybe we can dig in a little more and not have to worry about giving anything away.
Yeah, we'll get you back on and we'll dissect. I definitely want to, if anything, maybe we can do a whole AWA panel one day and get a bunch of you guys on here. I know Axel's all about it. So thank you so much for your time, Krista. Try to stay semi-cool over there in LA and we will see you around. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, come on, menopause is nothing to sneeze at. Okay, kids.
Thank you so much, Krista. We'll see you around and the best of luck with the
Goodness.
book, Bad Mother #1.